For a lot of years, I believed that the quality of my work would give me what I deserved. But I don't politic, and I don't change with the times, and it turns out that that shit's more important than good, honest work. So yesterday, after we stop a massive amount of drugs from getting into the school system, we get suspended because it wasn't done politely. If you put all our collars together, every imbecile we ever nabbed, it'd probably fill 2 entire wings of the state prison, maybe 3. We have the skills and the right to acquire proper compensation.
At the point at which I'd finished Bone Tomahawk, I was thinking about what I was going to do next, and I was trying to get Brawl and Cell Block 99 set up. And as a big fan of crime fiction and those sort of stories, I started thinking of what became Dragged Across Concrete.
And when we were trying to figure out what would be his third film, he sent me this script, and I read it right away, and I said, oh my gosh, we've got to make this right away.
He's just a very unique voice, and I kind of really enjoy the approach he takes to his process. So I'm just a fan of what he's doing.
Cut. That's good. Cut. Thank you, sir. Okay. So let's get you in the closet.
Well, the interesting thing is, so the first of these 3 that was written was Brawl and Cell Block 99, and that was written originally for someone else to direct and star in, and that was a contained piece. And Bone Tomahawk was written for me to direct, and I wrote that shortly after Brawl and Cell Block 99, and this was 2011, and it took a while to get Bone going. And so really, I've written a lot of stuff since then. 3, if not 4 novels, and probably about 9 other screenplays. So, you know, you obviously develop and see what you're more interested in.
Craig writes like a novelist. He writes his screenplays like a novelist, and they're very long and probably more dense than a traditional script.
In general, my writing process is I start at the beginning, I write to the end, and I do everything in order. And then I'll start refining it, but it's not very different. The opening sequence of the movie and in the final shooting script did not exist in the first draft.
I liked you back when we was in elementary, in Mr. Lorenzo's class.
I liked it too.
Wish I knew that.
Other than that, pretty much everything in that movie, scene by scene, line by line, was there in some form, and then really just the subsequent drafts are me just cleaning up the dialogue.
Cheryl Reed's still alive.
That front door looks armored.
Why are they making her do that? They want to clean things up before they go?
75%.
What's the other 25?
Not sure. Something weird.
But we like it because it's all there on the page, right? It's poetic. It's a beautiful read. It gets you really invested in the characters, and you can see the whole movie before we've even shot it.
Everything pays off. There's nothing that's random. That's what I love about it. And every single person is important, every single character. It was literally one of the best scripts I think I've ever read.
Each line of dialogue is rewritten 8 to 12 times. So I always touch that as I go through, and can I remove a word? If I add a word, is it funnier?
Could you box our food up into go containers?
You want me to pack up everything I just carried from all the way over there?
Correct.
How do I get this sentence to land on the most interesting word? How do I make this paragraph-long sentence flow? But the first draft of it is essentially the movie you're watching. The dialogue isn't as crisp, and the opening scene didn't exist.
You know, Zala has a very unique way of writing. I would say it's a style of his own.
And I read the script, and I dug the script, you know. And it wasn't like a regular script. I was kind of reading and going, what is this? It was more kind of like a book.
Yep. Let's go again and action.
I'm here to talk with Friedrich or Freddie, if you prefer.
And who can I say is that?
Tell him Richmond is here.
I'll go and see if he's available. I'm sure he is.
And it was intriguing, you know, because you think, well, what are these guys doing? He wasn't spoon-feeding everything, and it was just, you know, it kind of followed its nose. It was languid, but I don't know, I thought it was compelling and interesting.
So I think that's what draws the actors and other people in the industry to his scripts. And then being able to see his directing come through in the actual production is just the icing on the cake.
In terms of the cast of this movie, it really began with the relationship that I forged with Vince Vaughn on Brawl and Cell Block 99, which was terrific.
Zoller I've always been a fan of. I saw that Bone Tomahawk, which I thought was really cool and very different than what people were doing. And then I had a really good experience doing Brawl with Craig.
We had a terrific experience making Brawl together. It was a very hard shoot, but the actor-director relationship was great, and he had the relationship with Mel Gibson.
So when this movie came to me through Zoller, they also said that they were going to go to Mel. He liked Mel for this part.
What happened was, in my original conception of the piece, Anthony Lurisetti and Brett Ridgman were both a little bit younger, but as soon as I decided that I wanted Vince Vaughn to play Anthony Lurisetti, I knew that I needed somebody who could match his presence on screen, and there are not many of those, and someone with whom it seemed like he had a genuine camaraderie, which he does in real life with Mel and certainly does on screen.
Take two.
I'm still enjoying the aftertaste.
Not all of us are.
You know, I really appreciate working with Vince. He's the team leader when he's on set. You know, he keeps everyone's spirits up. And he's, I don't know, he's the activities organizer. You know? If you're on a cruise ship, he's like, hey, let's play shuffleboard, everyone.
That's where we just see the whole calamity of this story.
You don't mind a little bit the pain and the movement in between, right? That stuff's so good. You like
That stuff's great.
Yeah, but just the breathing.
And I'm
even
sort
less.
of playing real fucking like, fuck.
Let's go.
You know, like I'm actually, like, normally I'm cool with seeing people
This
die
is
and shit.
this is the whole time I said there's one scene where you're not cool with it. You're cooler
good.
with your own death than this.
Yeah, okay. All right.
And Mel had been familiar with some of my scripts that were kicking around. I had a Western that I tried to get to him at a certain point.
So I think I was on his radar for a while.
And Mel read Dragged Across Concrete, sent Vince a message and made very flattering comparisons to Don Siegel and Sam Peckinpah, two of my heroes. And I spoke to Mel one conversation, a really long conversation about more filmmaking than this specific piece, but this specific piece, and he was on board.
Mel Gibson comes to set every day, the consummate professional. He is always ready to go. He's focused. He's intense. He's really pretty quiet. But when we call action and let him roll, he just gets into character, and it's just so fun to watch. He's the ultimate leading man.
That's what most cops do when they get suspended. Go rob bank robbers. Why are you taking that off?
I need the strap to stop the bleeding.
You have this idea of Mel Gibson, that he's this legendary actor, that he's done so many great things. He's also a great filmmaker. He's a great performer. And then when you get to work with him, you discover that he's a great collaborator. He's open, he's very funny, and it was a gift to be able to be in scenes with him and perform with him and have laughs with him. We laughed a lot.
And my first conversation with Tori was one in which we, kind of talked about where we grew up and people we knew, and he said he knew this guy. He said he knew exactly who Henry Johns was, and there was a friend of the family who came over and wasn't as well provided for, and he knew a guy who was exactly this character.
Before I consider that kind of vocation, I need to get myself acclimated.
Certainly. Walk around, breathe some air, gaze at the sky, see how blue it looks on the outside. Enjoy yourself.
Once I've settled, I'll let you know.
I remember going back to look at the first page of the script to see who was this writer, who is this guy, this S. Craig Zoller. And as I continued to go on, I thought the characters were so unique in their own way, so rich. It was almost like you could just feel them jumping off the page.
And when Tori's name came up, I dug deeper and looked at his performances in television shows and a bunch of different movies. And what I saw was consistency.
You fucking dumbass. I wasn't gonna blackmail you, my word's good. Should have trusted a nigga.
I ever did for this was steal some autos, pedal some blow, and put the fool who crippled my brother into intensive. I ain't never killed nobody.
And the other thing that I saw is his comfort with doing very little when the scene calls for very little.
Let's grab takeout when we're done with this. I'm really in the mood for some cellophane noodles.
And that's something that that some terrific actors are not comfortable doing. Not every scene are you going to the rails. Not every scene is your character loaded up with emotions and trying to keep it together. And there's some actors that want to do that. They want to show that technique, or they want to get into that emotional space, and that's partially why those people might have become actors in the first place. Vince is very comfortable doing very little, and Tori is just as comfortable doing very little.
Be vigilant.
Always am. I think what Zahler is doing, to me, that's so interesting. It's like a mashup of genres. He's pulling all of these different elements from different genres, but mixing it up in a way that's completely his own. It's a weird alchemy that's going on with it. And you can feel it, you know? You can feel it on the set. You can feel it in the pages.
80-20 in terms of your attention.
Right.
Like, you want to get to him, and he can't, but like,
Okay.
he's on the ground and stuff like that,
Right,
and you're just making sure that these guys aren't getting a
See,
shot.
I didn't see the.
It's like he sets this world and he drops you right into it, and you just want to know what's going on. It's so fascinating.
And what he's done and what Craig's done with the character and writing it is he's created this hero that pops up out of nowhere, and ultimately the movie becomes his, like it or not.
He's a phenomenal actor, and I hope a lot of people discover him. Obviously, there are two more famous actors as the other two leads, but I think Tori holds his own on the screen with all of these guys, and is I hope a discovery for people who don't know him.
Sorry to put you into these cops, but I can't be finicky right now.
I try not to write with actors in mind, because then you start thinking about, will they want to do this, and all of that sort of stuff. In some way, Fred Melamed and who he is, and he's the performer who's been in all three of my movies. He's someone that it's hard for me to escape thinking about writing a role for, partially because of his voice, partially because of his presence, and partially because a lot of my pieces always had characters that were sort of like my various imaginings of him.
Good heavens, and praise be to him.
Hi.
And that radiant vision of maternity that just walked through our front doors, possibly be our beloved Mrs. Summers.
But for the most part, most of the stuff was written prior to me having these relationships. But, you know, again, the first day I was on set of Brawl in Cell Block 99 and heard Don Johnson doing my dialogue, and like, this is kind of the voice I heard in my head.
There's an issue with the bust you two made this morning.
Who's complaining?
Civilian. Saw you out on the fire escape.
Vasquez was armed and a threat. We did what
There's a video.
You've seen it?
I have. It's not terrible. Certainly could be much, much better.
Not for nothing, I grew up in Miami, and the first thing I ever directed and co-wrote was as a sixth grader a Miami Vice play with children running around with plastic Uzis. So his voice had already been in my mind for the major part of my life, and what a wonderful performer he is. And talk about comfortable with doing very little and nuanced.
Use your time off to think about things. Talk it over with Melanie. Spend some time with her and Sarah.
Yeah, I will.
Something that's done more in novels and probably television series and more long-form things than in movies, the idea of introducing a new character and a major character late into the story, I think is an interesting thing, and it adds more color to it. And at that point in the story, you've had the perspectives of disenfranchised policemen and two criminals in the underworld who really probably aren't that bad of guys, but are certainly doing things that are against the law to get paid. And so you're getting those two facets of people who are directly involved in that. And I really wanted to have another perspective and another color at that point in the piece of a person who was completely unrelated to all of that stuff, who was going to meet at the nexus of these storylines converging.
You seem honest and obedient. Handcuff every single person here, except for the manager. Use these. Fasten their hands behind their backs. Tight. Do not say anything to anyone at any time, or you will be executed.
Jennifer Carpenter's initial reaction when she saw it, at least to me, she understood what it was, thought it was very, very interesting, and also thought it was rather daunting, which I can understand why she did. She said once in an interview that on the set of Drag that those were the hardest days she'd worked, and I was requiring her to be a gold medal, Olympic level performer every day.
How am I supposed to sit at a stupid desk and talk about bank accounts when my baby is here?
So she knew exactly how difficult it was going to be. Those are very loaded scenes. There isn't a moment that she's on screen where she's not loaded with subtext and thinking about other things, and her work is magnificent. And again, I think it just gives a whole other dimension to the piece that wouldn't be there if we just stayed with people who are directly involved in the plot and driving it forward, as opposed to getting a sense of people who aren't driving the plot forward but are really just going to be caught in the crosshairs.
Will you make sure my baby gets this? His name is Jackson.
We are unabashedly independent. Even though we have Lionsgate releasing the movie, we are out here on our own with virtually, no help, making this on our own. And that's the only way to give Zoller true creative control.
Okay, so let's do a rehearsal, folks.
And so what we're most proud of as producers is the ability to create a sandbox for Craig Zoller to make his castle in a way that there's not a bunch of outside voices weighing in on people.
And then you draw the gun from behind, target there, get off as many shots as Rick says that you can.
He's a very visual guy, and it was like that for me as I was reading. I could see these images. They were just coming. He's also very descriptive. He's very detailed. In a way, he's like a great novelist, but stylistically, his own animal.
This is my third film with Craig Zoller, the director, and this script was one of the most complex he's written, with sort of interweaving stories and really rich characters. And so when I first read the script, I immediately saw a look and feel and tone in my head and thought that this was something that I had never really read before.
A thing that Benji really brings, in addition to very lovely lighting and no small amount of speed, is he's always an artist. And no matter how stressful things get and how rushed things get, there isn't a point where he forgets or he overlooks how these shots are coming together, what the shot says, what the shot expresses.
A minuscule manifestation of our affections.
Mr. Edmonton, everybody, really, thank you for this. Really. It was really hard to leave the movie.
Any delivery scheduled for today?
A director of photography or cinematographer has traditionally been a role where it's technicals mixed with creativity and crafting the visual feel of the story in a lot of ways. So as Craig Zoller and I collaborate very closely, we develop a specific style for the film, rules for what the camera can do, how things are lit, and how things will be presented in line with the intention of the story.
You get Ridgeman's neighborhood at night outside, and also in his home where that yellow kind of sodium light is pouring in, and you get a sense of the nighttime environment out there, and maybe the sense that it's not the cleanest and not the safest.
He tends to have stronger backlight and a little bit more contrast, where he's sort of in a darker place. And Anthony's world tends to be a little bit glossier, a little bit brighter. He just feels more positive.
This was really delicious.
Glad you liked it. And should I infer from your reticence that this is one of those times you can't talk about your work?
Please, infer by my reticence.
When an audience sees a movie, they're responding to images and sound, and something they may not realize is beyond just pointing a camera at something, every decision about how things look, what lenses you choose, how the shots are framed, what the camera is doing, are related to their takeaway, their response, and emotional reaction to a film.
One of the things I think with Zahler is you're digesting stuff with a different lens on from his mind for what he's attempting to do or executing, and I think that you're picking up on it. It's less about just the aesthetic of driving towards something that's pleasing and kind of to the eye way. There's a lot of character and build up, and then, to your point, strategy behind how they're engaging and stuff.
I've been processing there for 5 hours. You should have given me a nudge.
And there wasn't a reason to. You still in?
I am until I'm not.
The world of the story is always cohesive, and the camera style is always cohesive throughout the whole film, so that you feel like you're watching the same world all the time. But we do different things with color, with lens choices, and with camera placement to imply different feelings for these characters in these worlds.
It's a very different style than my first two movies. It's a lot of locked off stuff. It's a lot of space and breathing. The camera, if it's moving, it's to just maintain a frame with the performers.
The camera is never handheld. It's always very controlled. It's always very placed. It never moves unless a character moves. And those are the rules of the world. And when those accumulate throughout the experience of watching a film, those are some of the ways that the audience is very in tune and becomes very invested in a very specific kind of story and experience.
She's got a gun.
75% chance, yeah.
Where do you want me?
Window. There were parameters that he put around himself for the entire film that had a good look. Nothing actually stuck out for me. It was, it had its own feel and flavor, and it was languid. It didn't sort of bump in on close-ups all the time. They covered a lot pretty simply. And it was well lit, you know, so long as you're telling the story, so long as you're just able to pick it up, you know, however you get to it, and sometimes simpler is a lot better.
And I'm trying to make the cinematographic aspect as inconspicuous as possible.
You know, it's interesting because it all sort of is justified and makes sense in the context of the film, but I can't help but feel that if you just took stills and put them in a museum, you're really looking at sort of a modern, bizarre collection of visuals that are just unique. So as you're watching the movie and you kind of take your time and look around, he's giving you time, I think, to take in the visuals and process those things as much as just telling a narrative story. You're being asked as an audience to, both where sound is concerned, performance is concerned, choices in wardrobe and those things. I think you're being asked to take these things on many, many different layers than just I'm following people that feel like they're dressed like in all movies, or the choices are being made or choices that we always see.
And it's a really good working relationship. I mean, obviously, we've been through 3 shoots together. You would think that Dragged Across Concrete being more than 7 times the budget of Bone Tomahawk would have been the easiest of the bunch, but it was the hardest by far. And we had a really good plan set up from the start, and mostly we're able to stick to that, you know, except when logistics and problems got in our way. But he's very aware of performance and will often quote me as the one director who never says it's too dark.
I'm most proud of the visual feel of the film in that we wanted to push it into an almost comic book, graphic novel aesthetic, where things were very, very composed and the lighting was stark at times and very sort of shaped, where we felt darkness even in daytime. But I think that the audience will feel that it has a unique tone that represents the heightened drama.
Well, it's a director's medium, so you can give a performance and have it be very different depending on the editing process of the movie. Zahler really enjoys taking his time with the characters and sitting with them.
Picked up the engagement ring.
From Feinbaum?
Yeah. Okay. Got it the day we busted Vasquez, and the timing wasn't great, but I was gonna propose anyway. I was gonna let some work bullshit interfere with my private life. But it turned out she was in a bad mood that night because of some drama at her job, and I didn't do it. And then yesterday you bring me here, suggest this thing, and I'm sort of okay with the idea. Us taking money off some fuckhead dealer, if the risk isn't too great.
I write it and I hear a tempo in my mind. I'm a drummer, so I certainly think in those terms.
You know, there wasn't a lot of air in what I did, or I tried not to leave much air in there. Sometimes he'd ask me to put more air and be even more kind of like he said, no, Les, I don't even want to know you have a pulse. And, and I'd be like, okay.
I do what I think best when I'm out there. I was that way when we were partners, and I'm still that way now.
There's a reason I'm sitting behind this desk running things. And you're out there crouching on fire escapes in the cold for hours.
This is pretty good. I mean, it's really like, whoa, this guy's, he's, you know, hardly alive sometimes. And he called him the grim fellow in the screenplay. I thought, okay, well, that means something.
One thing before you go. I watched that video a couple of times. You threw a lot more cast iron than you needed to.
The cadences that I heard in my mind when I wrote them, Mel and Don are pretty much hitting those cadences as I wrote them. There's not a ton of unexpected stuff.
I'm here to talk with Friedrich, or Freddie, if he prefers.
And who can I say is...
Tell him Richmond is here.
I'll go and see if he's available.
He is.
He's landing those cadences very much the way I imagine them, with his terrific Mel Gibson voice. And Don Johnson, in his extended scene, also has quite a bit of talking.
It's not healthy for you to scuff concrete as long as you have. You get results, but you're losing perspective and compassion. A couple more years out there and you're going to be a human steamroller, covered with spikes and fueled by bile.
There's a lot of imbeciles out there.
And so they're coming on the cadences very much as I imagine them. Whereas Vince, there's a lot of surprise in terms of where he's landing and what he's accenting.
Well, my problems don't require those kinds of professionals. I'm thinking about the kind of future I can offer my girlfriend, and, you know, that life won't have a lot of diamonds.
But Vince will just have a surprise landing on a word or pause.
You don't have anything to say about her culpability?
Those Italian emotions are saying plenty.
You go to hell, you heartless fuck.
I never saw that opera.
And he'll land in unexpected ways. Tori also, I would say, falls a little bit more in the Mel and Don camp with, this is how I imagined it sounding, almost exactly, maybe the closest of anybody there.
Don't drive too close to that muck.
You sure you ain't an elementary teacher? Used to dealing with little kids who don't know nothing.
I believe what you meant to say was, who don't know anything.
You understood me, didn't you?
Yeah. But you're a lot smarter than you sound, a whole lot smarter from what I've seen.
It's good to be underestimated.
He sort of does this thing where he plays on words. He pits words against each other in a very interesting way, but it's completely stylistically his own.
What these people are bringing is their person and all of the depth of that performance. So there is what you're hearing, but also, you know, what you're seeing and what you're reading into their face, what they're showing, what they're not showing, what's hidden underneath, every beat change, unit shift, all of those moments is, you know, that's the real magic that happens on set, because these three movies have been really, really faithful to the scripts. Like the dialogue is, they're pretty much verbatim, but bringing all this stuff to life and inhabiting it and getting in a position where what you're saying seems natural to the character, even though a lot of the dialogue is heightened and stylized, is the achievement.
It's interesting because you see it more now on a lot of these adult television shows. There's a much slower pacing or spending time with characters over a course of 10 or however many episodes that they have. But you used to see that more in films a long time ago. And I think Zahler's just a fan of maybe perhaps being a novelist, but he likes sitting with characters and taking his time with stuff and sort of investing with characters.
The bank will reopen in 15 minutes. Come back then. Might have said 50. What do I?
Probably not.
This guy's like a cigarette commercial.
And then when you're in the editing room, you see what kind of works. And things when it's banter and it's back and forth and someone's undercutting somebody, there's a right rhythm to that. So some of that stuff would get tightened up a little bit if it wasn't tight on the set on the day.
You gonna tell me the nature of this endeavor?
I'm gonna sleep.
What are we
We're gonna drive to 19th and Brand.
Why are we going all the way up there?
Every answer I give you is gonna engender 3 times as many questions. Let me sleep what I can, and once we're there, you'll get your answers. So nap if you need one.
Sounds like a stakeout.
In general, my philosophy with how to pace things is have it on screen as long as it's interesting.
Working with a writer-director is a different scenario than working with a director, and especially working with a writer-director like Zahler, who everything that he does is completely designed.
Cut. That was excellent.
So I know going in that everything, every little character, every little moment, it's there for a reason. I don't always know exactly why it's there. I may not always get it right. But having done 3 pictures with Zahler, I have a little better sense. But again, truly a Zahler picture is unique to Zahler, and it isn't until he comes into the cutting room and starts to really shape the material does the tone and the pace and the feeling really start to come alive. So what I do in my cuts are pale imitations of what are going to happen once he gets in and starts really shaping the material.
Well, one thing I think that unites all 3 of my movies is they're character driven, and another thing that unites all 3 is my interest in world building. So in the case of this piece, I really wanted to go deeper with the characters and sit in those spaces with them for a long time. If they're on a stakeout, someone's eating a sandwich.
That's all a part of the detail of the world that Zahler creates and that he's interested in. For him, it's the journey and the destination. And as part of the journey of being cops, or in this case, road cops, out on a stakeout, they spend long hours tediously waiting for something to happen. And what do you do in those long hours? Well, at a certain point, of course, you're gonna eat. And probably after years of doing that, when you know, in a sense, that's gonna be like the highlight for a long stretch of time, because you don't know when the perp is gonna show up and action is gonna happen, you're probably gonna revel in it.
So we kind of kept going more and more, and Vince at some point said, let me have a napkin. And then the idea that was really his key idea was the idea of, can I get a salt shaker?
Amen. I mean, behavioral stuff is always good if it works, if it hits, if there's a point to it. And, you know, beats like that work.
I've been listening to and smelling that for the last 98 minutes.
That's one of my favorite moments in the movie, and that was something he came up with on the day.
I mean, Zahler's really unique to me. He's a novelist. You know, he writes all the songs for his movies. He writes all the original music.
My relationship with movie scores is sort of complicated. Because I come at things as a writer first, I believe in the written word. And I have a bottom line philosophy with most movies that are out there. Some exceptions may be being horror and science fiction, but most movies, if you have a good script and good performances, your movie's gonna be good.
One of the things I love the most is that he doesn't want music in his films. And that's liberating for me.
Craig and I have argued, debated, discussed use of music in film for a long time. He loves and wants he wants the actors to express themselves on screen without being supported by music to tell the story in place of the acting and the raw emotion that's there.
Because I'm a writer, first and foremost, as a novelist and screenwriter, I believe in the material. And I believe that when someone is reading that script, they're gonna have an emotional experience. And someone's reading that novel, they're gonna have an emotional experience. Now add Vince Vaughn, Don Johnson, Tory Kittles, Mel Gibson, Jennifer Carpenter, Fred Melamed, Udo Kier to that experience. It's only going to be stronger. I mean, this is one of the reasons I make movies, because I think it's the most vivid art form.
The way he tries to use music is in a couple of ways. One is to have obviously songs, and then these can play diegetically in the film. So you actually hear the song because it's playing on the radio, or you hear the song because it's at the restaurant, or you hear the song because it's playing at the ring shop or the suit store in this one, or on the TV. And in fact, in Dragged, all of the music is diegetic. Everything in this one is playing someplace, is source music.
Without a doubt, the most enjoyable part of post-production for me is the part where I just go and write an album of songs which have Harriet.
He just sits there and writes the lyrics in real time, and then starts trying to improvise and sing to the tracks that we've made. And then we just edit the stuff together and figure out what sort of works until we have a demo. Some songs he began, some songs I began. There's usually a ton of laughs, lots of failures, failed ideas, and funny things that just, especially some of the lyrics that he's coming up with.
But writing an album during post is incredibly enjoyable. And so Jeff came in, we worked for, I think, 4 days, 14 to 18 hours a day. Then he came in a second time, and we wrote 10 soul songs, 4 jazz songs, and a couple that were discarded pretty early on, and just started shaping them.
Going back to Brawl, when we wrote songs for Brawl and Cell Block 99, we didn't know who was going to sing the songs. So it was Craig's idea that we would write and record R&B songs and figure out a way to make it happen. And of course, we had ideas of older musicians, 70s musicians, that we could get to sing them. And we started building a list of possible singers, both from that period as well as modern people that we might approach.
There aren't that many great soul acts left, and if there's any actual agenda I have with an interview or a movie, it's like, cherish these guys. There aren't that many of them left. And the OJs, Walter Williams Sr. and Eddie Levert, these guys are treasures and terrific performers. And they had a million hits, but in addition to all those hits and 10 or 11 platinum albums, they're terrific guys and incredible performers. And it's just a thrill to work with them, to be in the studio, hear them sing the lyrics I wrote and the melodies that I came up with my songwriting partner. It was just incredible. I mean, those are some of the best memories of my life.